history teacher when I was very young in high school. And she taught me something very, very important that I've never forgotten in my career. And I'll give it to you here. Great politicians, great leaders, great CEOs are phenomenal entertainers. Going back to the days of Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Bismarck, they used to hold council at night, have big dinner parties, or sit around the fire with their camp, with their men, and tell stories. They would tell stories of great defeats, great battles, great loves, and that would spread through the troops. You know, the leader told us about this maneuver in the Nile yesterday, and it would capture the hearts and minds of the people. Donald Trump is exactly that. He is a great entertainer. He smoked the competition by eating 101% of the airtime in the last election. Unfortunate for Hillary, she was boring on television. And like Obama was, it was a different time. She didn't see that it was time to be entertaining. The best ever coverage she got was the debates with Trump, where it was so mesmerizing. I actually watched that instead of football. I remember sitting with a bunch of guys golfing, and we turned that on instead of a football game, and I said, wow. He's Alexander the Great. What my take on Trump and his cabinet is, I don't watch the circus or the freak show, whatever you want to call it. I look at the policy. I'm a policy wonk. And I have this unique index I should share with you. I have interests in almost, no, it is over 50. It's over 50 private companies now, all in practically every state. Very few states we don't have interests in now. I get the monthly cash flows of every one of these businesses because most of my deal structures are royalties, as you know, or venture debt or preference shares or converts. And I have lots of covenants around cash flow. I have never in my life seen an economy like this. This is even better than the 60s. It is phenomenal. And I think primarily because of deregulation, not tax reform. My companies in California, in Texas, in Florida, in Illinois, at the municipal level and the state level have been set free.
What is the nature of that deregulation?
I'll give you an example. In California, I had a deal that converted strip mall, retail space that had failed, 1,200 square feet, and turned it into a place where you could paint and drink wine. And very successful business called Wine and Design. You get a painting lesson, you sip wine with your friends, you enjoy yourself for 4 hours. You do a painting. The regulations to actually allow people to do that included such absurd regulations. For example, a frosted glass window had to be within 21 feet of a back door that did not have frosted glass, but had bars across it. And all kinds of absurd regulations have been on the books since the 50s. Well, Trump swept all that garbage away.
How did he do that? Where does that come?
He basically, anything that was a federal mandate, he just ripped it up. And some of these regulations were federally mandated, and others were stripped away by states watching businesses leave and saying, wait a minute, if they're deregulating that for Texas federally, I'm going to do that on a state basis. All of a sudden, I can open up stores all across California where I never could, just like that. And so this has been a really interesting time over the last 36 months, and I see no slowdown. I just saw last month's numbers. Wow. I mean, I'm just...
So now you're making me think it's the fall of 1929. I don't know. It's like things can only keep going up.
I'm very optimistic about the domestic economy. We could have trade war issues with the S&P 500 because 46% of their sales are international. But I'll tell you this about Trump. Here's my assumption. The chance he doesn't get a second term, in my view, is zero. And I'll tell you why. I don't recall in modern times when going into a second term at full employment, the incumbent of any party has ever lost their mandate, ever.
How important to you, and I want to come to Canada in a second, but as in a leader like Trump, and entertaining, et cetera, but then the rhetoric is not just bilious. I mean, it's racist. It's extremely divisive. And of course, people on the other side are giving him the same. Does that kind of stuff trouble you at all, or is that just a kind of epiphenomenon? It doesn't matter.
I met Trump because we both worked for Mark Burnett. He was on The Apprentice. We were just starting Shark Tank. We used to meet up when we were selling the forwards in New York. It's an advertising for the networks. in many ways, his style is, for 50% of the population, his style is difficult. I don't believe he's a racist man. I don't believe that at all. I don't think he's a sexist man. I don't believe that at all, even though it's interpreted. I think he's a family man, but people don't get that.
Well, he's had several families,
He
so
has.
he obviously
He's been married
likes
multiple
them.
times. He's a, and that's not going to change, is my point. This won't get better for people that don't like him. I ignore all that stuff. And, you know, I get, in my family, the night that he got elected, we were all sitting around. It was the culmination of all that entertainment of the election cycle. And my daughter wept. And I said, Savannah, this is a really good thing that just happened. You just don't know it yet. She said, how can that man be elected? How can, it was a very divisive moment in my family. So we have in my own family people that our dining room discussions and, Sunday night dinners are about politics. I love politics. And I keep trying to sell them on the merits of his policy. And I realize it's never going to change their opinions. America's like that too. Yeah. My family is just like the average American family.
So with younger people in particular, there's a ton of polls out that showing, that millennials or people under 40, Americans under 40, have a positive view of socialism. In some polls, a more positive view of socialism than capitalism. Yeah. How do you change that? Because they are going to, there's already more millennials than baby boomers. Yeah. They're going to be voting at some point. Where are they wrong, and how do you reach them? Not, to convert them to capitalism.
I was a socialist when I was 18 years old, too. I was left-wing until I got my first paycheck, and I saw something called tax on it. Everybody's a socialist when they're young until they start working, and they start realizing how tough it is out there, and they start realizing how much money government wastes when they take half their income in taxes. And that's when you become a conservative. The older you get, the more realistic you become. And a majority of those people make the transition in their mid-20s. That's what happens. I never worry about it. My job today is to teach young people about the entrepreneurial journey, to make sure that those that can't handle it don't try it. I tell people, this is what it's like. I'm going to do a 2-hour lecture. I'm going to walk you through what your life's going to be like if you pursue this. And maybe some of you should be great employees, because not everybody in this room is going to make it as an entrepreneur. It's that way about life. And I think the natural cycle is the world's a kumbaya place when your parents are paying for everything for you. And then you get out of the house and you're on your own and you go, wow, it's tough out here.